This year I've been thinking a lot about, or at least this week in particular, I've been thinking a lot about the word surrender. And as I move from this year into the next, that's one of my emphasis. And that word can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, of course. For instance, when General Lee surrendered his sword to General Grant, that signaled the end of our Civil War. But I mean to get a little bit more current than that, of course. Another might be the old song from the 70s that Cheap Trick did. Remember that, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mommy's all right, Daddy's all right, they just get a little weird. Surrender, surrender, but don't give yourself away. But that's not the surrender I'm talking about either. And Laura, I am not planning to turn myself in or surrender to the law. They wouldn't know what to do with me anyway. And Dee, no worries. I haven't decided to surrender in a religious sense and give up my own will and subject my thoughts and ideas and deeds to the will and teachings of another. That's just not my style. And Mimi and Garden, you'll be happy to know that I'm not surrendering the keys to my truck this evening, because I don't expect to have more than one cocktail tonight.
Oh, shucks.
Well, maybe one more. It's a long night. But what else does surrender mean? Well, how about the simple idea of ceasing resistance? A good example is when I'm trying to meditate and my head is filled with chattering thoughts instead of peace and emptiness. In the Buddhist tradition, that's called monkey mind. Some of you may have heard that term before. And I've learned over the years that the more I resist that real barrage of thoughts, the more insistent my mind can be. And I found it very, very frustrating. And my head sometimes feels like a pinball machine. Anybody know that feeling?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, we've got a few yays. A few amens there, right? Now, if on the other hand, I simply breathe and I smile to myself and I stop fighting with my monkey mind, then we, me and my mind, agree that all of those thoughts can be put on hold and can take place a little bit later. Then the resistance has stopped and I'm able to pretty easily move into that meditative place of peace and connection with all. And when I surrender in meditation, I find that I've let go of my will and my concepts and my viewpoints and my patterns and even my practices, at least for a few minutes. And I melt in those few minutes into a higher place, it seems. And I've read that both Christ and the Buddha taught that you need to let yourself go in order to find yourself. And discipline techniques like meditation, that's not the only one, but that's a main one that I use, are required in order to find that kind of surrender. You know, I've also been thinking about surrendering my need to make things happen in this world and in my life. And I thought about how things have been happening for billions and billions of years without me. And how my own breath and my own heartbeat and even my own mind happened without any doing on my part. It's something to think about. Perhaps I don't need to make things happen. And I'm not in charge of what's unfolding in front of me. Now, I do want to pay attention to what's unfolding in front of me, what's happening in the world, what the universe is creating right in front of me. And I still want to participate in it, and I want to be part of it. But I don't necessarily want my own desires and fears to interfere with what's happening. That doesn't mean I don't act and I do influence my life and the lives of others in the world that I live in. But consider this. I've learned personally that often those desires and fears that I feel and I tend to act upon are simply impressions left from the past. And what's happening in front of me is reminding me of something that I was uncomfortable with, or something I was comfortable with in the past. I think we tend to hold on to these things from our past, and they're inside us, and they keep coming up as reminders, and we keep reacting to them. A lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is reacting. And if you really, really like something, you cling to it, don't you? You don't want to let it go. You hold it inside you so you can feel and experience it again. And if you really, really don't like something, an experience or something, then you resist it, you repress it, you suppress it. You push it back, but it stays with you because you didn't let it go. When we hold on to these things from our past, I think they stay inside us and they keep coming up. And we keep reacting to them instead of what's in front of us. And therefore we don't fully experience life. And I think we all have a tendency to do this at one time or another. I don't see any Buddhas in the room yet. But what if instead of pushing the desires or the fears down, or clinging to them or holding on to them, what if I let them pass through, literally pass through me? What if I let go of the old garbage as well as the old roses? And what if I surrender and stop letting my own actions be about finding joy and avoiding pain? What if instead I was more fully present and asked myself why, when I started to react to what's happening around me, whether that be an irritation or an excitement or anger or elation? Why? I'm talking about letting go of my conditioning from the past and focusing less on what I'm going to do next that will bring me pleasure or avoid me pain. Well, then maybe my mind will not be so cluttered with the noise of my past. And I found that when I actually do tend to surrender these old attachments, and that's what they are, then whatever I'm doing or experiencing is really experienced from more of a place of clarity. And I read recently that surrender is about stepping into a moment with willingness to let the unexpected unfold. The willingness to let the unexpected unfold. And that, friends, is when inspiration and creativity happen too. This kind of surrender is kind of a simple concept, but it's not easy. Heck, I've had 65 years of pain and pleasures that lurk within me, and I value all of them, but I don't want them to dictate how I respond or react or avoid things for the rest of my years. It's okay if these arbitrary attachments inform me, but I'd like to go deeper and take more of a witness approach, that kind of position in life, and recognize when I'm clinging or resisting because of an old attachment. I think it's much more interesting that way, and I think maybe I'm more interesting that way as well. And I've seen evidence that I am more inspired and more creative when I live from this place. And so today, when we do this burning bowl ceremony and release what we don't want from 2017 and release our intentions for 2018, I'm going to be at least symbolically surrendering that past conditioning that's held me personally back from experiencing my life fully. And my intention for the coming year? Well, it's to let life unfold without trying so hard to do or to make it happen, to practice surrender. So whatever you choose to surrender to the fire, which we'll be doing out on the deck this morning, whatever you write down to maybe achieve or end or accomplish or even abolish in your life, we'll consider what emotional attachments that you have to the words on the paper. Consider the feeling that you want in the letting go or the manifesting of your dreams, and connect with them deeply and honestly. And know that in doing so, the resolution that you make, your intention, is going to be strengthened. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.